Meghan Markle has been dumped again by her agent this time, who just so happens to be the most powerful agent in all of Hollywood.
By the second week of April 2026, the picture coming out of the palace, the real picture, not the managed one, is one of a king who has reached the end of a particular kind of patience, not the patience that runs out in a dramatic confrontation, not the patience that produces a formal statement or a press release or any of the visible institutional machinery that the public associates with the palace making a decision. A quieter kind. The patience of a man who has extended grace across years, who has absorbed cost after cost in the name of family, who has allowed himself to hope that time and circumstance would produce the reckoning that direct confrontation could not, and who has finally arrived at the conclusion that the reckoning is not coming from the other direction. It has to come from him. And the specific trigger for that conclusion, the specific move that has reportedly taken Charles from patient tolerance into something his inner circle is describing as genuine fury, is the latest pivot from the Sussex camp. A pivot that has been building across the early months of 2026, and that is now crystallized into a communication strategy so audacious that even the palace's most experienced advisors have found themselves pausing to absorb it. The strategy is this. Everything that has gone wrong commercially and professionally for Harry and Meghan is being attributed to the royal family. The streaming projects that have stalled, the agency relationship that ended, the fashion partnerships that have not materialized, the speaking fees that have declined from their peak. All of it in the Sussex narrative that has been placed in friendly outlets and through carefully managed communications is the result of the couple's own high standards and their commitment to not embarrassing the institution they left. The institution that they have spent 6 years embarrassing is now being used as the excuse for why nothing is working, and King Charles has heard about it, and King Charles is furious. Today, we are going to tell you the full story of what is happening inside the palace in April 2026, what the specific Sussex communication strategy consists of, and why it has produced the response it has produced. What royal biographer Andrew Loney confirmed this week about the reforms Charles is now preparing to accelerate, including what those reforms mean for Harry's name and title specifically, what the palace is doing about James, the young Earl of Wessex, son of Prince Edward and Sophie, and why his elevation is directly connected to the space that Harry has permanently vacated, and what all of this means for where the monarchy is heading in the months and years ahead. We are going to take our time, because this story has layers. So settle in, and let's begin. Let's start with the Sussex communication strategy, because understanding it in its full audacity is the only way to understand why Charles has reacted the way he has. Across the early months of 2026, as the professional picture for Harry and Meghan has grown more complicated, their team has been placing a specific narrative in the outlets willing to carry it. The narrative goes like this. Meghan is not releasing certain projects because she is committed to maintaining a standard of excellence that includes not doing anything that could embarrass the royal family. Her self-editing, her deliberate restraint, is what is producing the delays and the apparent stagnation. She is, in this telling, protecting the institution. The same institution whose racism she alleged on global television. The same institution whose private communications Harry detailed in a memoir. The same institution against which they filed legal actions and gave Netflix access to private family footage and conducted the Oprah interview that the Archbishop of Canterbury subsequently had to correct publicly. That institution, they are now protecting it. Through their deliberate restraint. The palace's response to this strategy, when it filtered through to the king's advisors, is described by sources as combining something close to incredulity with something considerably warmer. Because the claim is not simply audacious in the abstract. It is audacious in direct relation to a specific and documented history. And it lands within the institution it claims to be protecting, like the specific kind of affront that produces genuine institutional anger rather than simply the managed disappointment of disappointed family feeling. Charles, by the accounts of those who know how he processes difficult information, did not respond with immediate rage. He responded with the sustained, concentrated stillness that those around him have learned to recognize as a more serious signal than visible anger. He asked questions. He reviewed the reporting. He considered the context, and then he authorized something. Now, if you are watching this channel, For the first time, and you want to follow this story as it develops, right, and it is developing quickly, please subscribe right now. We cover the royal family in the depth and detail these stories deserve. Hit subscribe, turn on your notifications, and every new video comes straight to you. What Charles has authorized is the acceleration of the reform program that royal biographer Andrew Lowney this week confirmed has been in preparation for some time. The reforms are broad. They address financial transparency, the governance structures around the institution's private assets, and, most significantly for the story we are telling today, the question of who carries the royal name and in what capacity. Lowney's assessment, delivered this week to News Nation, was specific and clear. He told the outlet that Charles is preparing to deal with the Andrew and Harry problem at the same time. That the reforms being planned will include moves to remove titles from anyone who is not in an active working role, and that the pressure created by the Andrew situation has forced the palace's hand, pushing Charles to act on reforms he may have hoped to delay until William's reign. Read that again. Deal with the Andrew and Harry problem at the same time. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, whose titles were stripped amid the Epstein fallout, and Harry, whose professional use of his royal name and title has continued to generate institutional controversy, being addressed through the same reform mechanism. Not as a personal punishment, as an institutional policy. The consistent application of a principle that the palace has been building toward for several years, that royal titles exist to serve the institution's public purpose, and that individuals who have made themselves incompatible with that purpose should not continue to carry the name. What this means specifically for Harry's name is significant and requires careful explanation. Harry's formal name in any non-royal context is Henry Charles Albert David Mountbatten Windsor. He was introduced at a public event earlier this year as Harry Wales, which produced considerable comment and which his spokesman described as a simple mistake. But the incident illustrated something that the palace reform program would formalize. The question of which name and which title applies to Harry in which context. The Sussex title, Duke and Duchess of Sussex, was granted by Queen Elizabeth on their wedding day. As Hello Magazine confirmed in its authoritative reporting on the subject, removing a dukedom requires an act of Parliament under existing law. The monarch does not have unilateral power to remove it. The last time parliamentary action was taken to remove British peerage titles was in 1917 under the Titles Deprivation Act, when George V removed the titles of German and Austrian royals during the First World War. But the reform mechanism being prepared by Charles is not simply about the Sussex title. It is about the framework within which names, titles, and royal associations can be used commercially and in public communications. It is about creating the institutional architecture that would give future action, whether by Charles or by William when he ascends, a formal and documented basis, rather than simply the expression of royal displeasure. Meghan's own comment to Mindy Kaling on her Netflix show, You Know I'm Sussex Now, illustrates exactly the dimension of the issue that the palace reform program addresses. The Sussex name has become a commercial asset. It is being deployed in branding, in content, in professional contexts. And the palace's position, the position being formalized through the reform program, is that this deployment is incompatible with the couple's actual relationship to the institution that name represents. Let us take a brief pause here. We are at the midpoint of this story, and the section ahead covers what the palace is doing about James, the young Earl of Wessex, and why his deliberate elevation is the most eloquent institutional statement available about where Harry now stands. If you are finding this as significant as we do, please subscribe the channel. It takes just a moment. Thank you. Let us now talk about James, because the James story is in some ways the most revealing dimension of what April 2026 represents institutionally. James Alexander Windsor, the Earl of Wessex, is the son of Prince Edward, Duke of Edinburgh, and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh. He is 21 years old. Until relatively recently, he was not a name that most people who follow the royal family would have placed in the conversation about the monarchy's future direction. He is now, and the reason he is now is entirely connected to the space that Harry has not simply vacated, but has made unusable. The working monarchy's structure requires a certain number of individuals who can carry out engagements, represent the crown at official occasions, be deployed diplomatically, and sustain the visible presence of the institution across the range of its public functions. This is not an abstract requirement. It is a practical one. The events require bodies. The causes require patrons. The diplomatic functions require participants who carry genuine institutional weight. Harry's departure created a gap. The gap was initially managed through the natural expansion of the existing working members' schedules, William carrying more, Catherine carrying more, Edward and Sophie carrying more. But the long-term strategic response to Harry's absence required a different kind of answer. Not simply distributing his former functions among the existing members, but identifying the individual who would grow into the role that Harry's generation was supposed to fill. James is that individual, and the palace's deliberate positioning of him has been visible across the past 12 months to those who know what they are looking at. Charles has been specifically emphasizing in recent communications, through the palace's own channels and through the briefings given to trusted royal correspondents, the vision of a streamlined monarchy that centers on William and Catherine as the core with a reliable and drama-free supporting generation. James's name appears repeatedly in that framing. Drama-free. Those two words are doing the specific work in that institutional framing, because the contrast they imply is not to any named individual. It does not need to be. Anyone who has followed the royal family for the past 6 years knows exactly whose dramatic history provides the reference point against which drama-free is being measured. James is being positioned not as a replacement for Harry in any literal sense. He is not Harry's equivalent. He is something the institution values more at this specific moment, someone who provides the service without the cost, who carries out the function without the grievance, who brings the presence without the narrative. For Charles, who has spent years managing the cost of Harry's choices at considerable personal and institutional expense, the decision to deliberately position James as the face of the next generation's supporting role is not simply strategic. It is, in a quiet way, the clearest possible statement about what the institution has decided about Harry's future within it. The spare has been replaced, not by a declaration, by a decision. By the gradual, consistent, institutionally executed positioning of someone who has chosen duty over celebrity, service over narrative, the institution over himself. Now let us address the Jordan trip. Because it fits directly into the pattern we have been describing, and it was, by the accounts of royal commentators covering it in real time, the specific incident that pushed the palace from managed patience into the active fury that is now shaping the reform acceleration. In late February 2026, Harry and Meghan conducted a 2-day visit to Jordan. The visit had all the surface characteristics of the humanitarian work that has been part of their public positioning since leaving royal life. Hospital visits, refugee camp engagement, a roundtable with the World Health Organization, carefully calibrated statements about regional peace, and it was conducted with a motorcade, with diplomatic-level reception from Jordanian officials. In a country that has a historically significant connection to the British royal family through its own monarchy and through the specific diplomatic relationship that William and Catherine have developed through their own Jordan engagements. Royal expert Rob Shooter, writing on his Substack, captured the palace's response with precision. The headline of his piece, Harry and Meghan's quasi-royal tour angers palace, was not overstating it. The specific quality of the anger was not about the humanitarian work itself. It was about the form, the motorcade, the diplomatic reception, the specific appropriation of the visual language of an official royal tour for what was, in institutional terms, a private visit by individuals who have formally stepped back from official royal representation. The institution has a very specific and very carefully maintained visual vocabulary for what official royal representation looks like. When that vocabulary is appropriated by individuals who are not operating in an official capacity, it creates confusion. Deliberate confusion in the palace's assessment about what is and is not the crown's official business. Charles's fury at the Jordan trip is connected directly to the broader Sussex communication strategy we described at the opening of this video. Both the Jordan trip and the Royal Standard excuse are versions of the same move, using the institution's identity, its name, its visual language, its authority, while simultaneously claiming to have separated from it, taking what the crown offers while denying that you are using it. Let us now talk about what the palace's response looks like in practice, because fury for the palace is not expressed the way fury is expressed by individuals. It is expressed institutionally, through decisions, through the deliberate absence of engagement. through the systematic removal of the oxygen that the institution's association provides. The palace has, by the accounts of sources close to the institution, adopted what the competitors' coverage of this story accurately describes as an ignore and replace strategy. Not engage, not respond, not give the Sussex communications machine the reaction it requires to sustain its narrative. Simply ignore and replace. Ignore means that when Meghan's team places the royal standard excuse into a friendly outlet, the palace does not respond, does not rebut, does not acknowledge. The silence is not absence, it is policy. Every response the palace gives to a Sussex claim extends the life of that claim. Refusal to respond shortens it. The institution has learned this and is applying it consistently. Replace means James. Means the continued and consistent elevation of William and Catherine as the unambiguous center of the institution's public identity. Means the deliberate positioning of the next generation's supporting members, James first among them, as the faces of what working royal service looks like in 2026 and beyond. The result is visible in the British public's engagement with the royal family. The names that dominate the conversations about the monarchy's future, the names that the public identifies with what the crown is becoming, are William, Catherine, and increasingly James. Harry is, by the assessment of multiple sources covering the British public's relationship with the institution, transitioning from a current participant in that conversation to a historical reference point within it. Let us address something directly. Because the question of why Charles's fury matters, why it is significant that the king himself is now in a state of genuine institutional anger rather than managed disappointment, requires an honest answer. It matters because Charles is not simply the family patriarch managing a difficult son. He is the king. And the specific authority he holds over the reform program that Loney described this week is the authority that determines what the institutional architecture of Harry's future relationship to the crown actually looks like. Charles can accelerate the reform timeline. He can ensure that the framework being built provides the basis for action, by him or by William when he ascends, that removes the commercial and reputational ambiguity that the Sussex name has been generating. He can make the institutional decisions that distinguish between what the crown is and what the Sussexes are entitled to claim it is. And he appears to be moving in that direction. Not impulsively, not dramatically, but with the deliberate, documented, institutionally methodical pace that significant royal decisions have always moved at. The Loney confirmation this week is the clearest public signal yet that the movement is real, that the decisions being made inside the palace in April 2026 are not the managed patience of an institution hoping the situation resolves itself. They are the deliberate action of an institution that has decided the situation needs resolving. Let us end where this story finds its most significant truth. King Charles III came to the throne at 73. He has spent his reign managing a set of challenges that no previous monarch in living memory has faced simultaneously: his own health, the Epstein fallout, the Andrew situation, the Beatrice and Eugenie distancing, and at the center of all of it, the continuing management of a son who left and has been using the departure to generate a narrative ever since. He has been patient, genuinely patient, not strategically patient, not patience as a calculated institutional weapon, but the patient of a father who did not want to close the door that he hoped might still produce a different outcome. The Sussex communication strategy of April 2026, the royal standard excuse, the Jordan quasi-tour, the commercial use of the institutional name while claiming to be protecting the institution, has produced the conclusion that patient waiting was not going to produce. The institution has to act. Not because acting is comfortable, because the alternative to acting is allowing the institution's name and authority to be used in ways that damage it indefinitely by individuals who have made clear they will not stop voluntarily. Charles is furious, not in the way that produces a public statement or a family confrontation, in the way that produces a reform program, a deliberate elevation of James, a systematic application of the ignore and replace strategy, and the acceleration of the institutional architecture that determines what the Sussex name is permitted to represent. The spare has been replaced. The reform has been accelerated. The patience has ended. And the institution, as it always does, is moving forward. The institution has declined to play that role, King Charles has declined to be the villain in a narrative that requires a villain. William and Catherine have declined to respond in kind. And James, quiet, steady, 18-year-old James, has simply started showing up, doing the work, and becoming the kind of royal that the public needs. One who is there not because the cameras are rolling, but because the institution requires presence. As of the 10th of April 2026, the score is clear. It is not a score that anyone should take pleasure in. This is a family, and the fractures within it are real and human and painful, but it is a score nonetheless. The institution endures, the next generation has arrived, the royal restoration plan has failed, and the king is in America, surrounded by the apparatus of state representing 800 years of continuous service, and he will not be meeting his son. Before we close, we want to ask you directly, what do you think? Is there a path back for Harry and Meghan, not to royal life, but to a stable and credible public identity? Do you believe the royal family has handled this correctly? And what do you make of the quiet rise of James? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. This community is made up of people who think carefully about these questions, and your perspective matters. Thank you so much for watching today, all the way to the end. This is one of the most significant moments in the monarchy's management of the Sussex situation, and we are grateful to everyone who stayed through the full picture. Before you go, please leave a comment below and tell us whether you think Charles is making the right move by accelerating the reform program now, or whether William should have been left to handle the title question when he ascends. We read every comment. And if you are not yet subscribed, please do it now. Click subscribe, turn on your notifications, and we will see you in the next one. Thank you. We will see you soon.